Absolutely.
But there's an active paradox here, isn't it? Because that's not the whole story. Otherwise, you'd be sitting in the corner smiling and not talking to us here, and not working as hard as you do, and not talking to people to help the process of waking them up so that they can then join you in this understanding, which we share with you also. It's important, in a sense, to pretend that all this is real, because this is the platform from which we can waken ourselves up and rejoin consciousness again. And so it's a paradox. It goes on at both levels. What you say is true, and this all is an illusion, and it all doesn't matter, but it's all important enough for us to be talking about it.
What I was saying is your presentation, where you're talking about consciousness and the mind, and the problems with staying just in mind, because there's a lot of brilliant people out there coming to brilliant conclusions, and yet they can't live it. See, the manifestation doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it becomes an intellectual, academic kind of point of observation rather than consciousness, which is something that just is. The difference that I am now increasingly making is between mind and consciousness. And I would go further and say that we talk about my mind, your mind, his mind, her mind. I don't see it like that. I talk about the mind. There is the mind is a construct of the virtual reality universe which allows us, consciousness, to interconnect with this virtual reality. It's like a conduit, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever if it serves the experience of consciousness and serves our ability to interact with this virtual reality universe. What has happened, and I would strongly suggest it's been manipulated to happen, not least by these families and other levels of the manipulation, is we have been manipulated into a false identity, which is identifying who we are with mind, which operates directly through the body, and calls itself David Icke, Ethel Jones, Charlie Smith, looks in the mirror and thinks that's who it is. And basically, you know, this is a biological computer. It's not a computer that just reacts to the way it's programmed to react to data input. It has the ability to, they call them living computers, biological computers. They're trying to build them now, so different parts of the world. It has the ability to assess information and make decisions on it. In other words, to quite a large extent, it has the ability to think. And what happens is, if we get caught in mind and self-identity of that reflection in the mirror is me, then, and not just my experience, then mind starts to govern our sense of reality. And mind is about division, apartness, hierarchy, rules, regulations, laws, limitation. And, you know, you can have someone in the New Age arena who talks about spirituality, talks about other dimensions, and which are other virtual reality games, I would suggest, other levels, but blatantly is stuck in mind and the values of mind. I mean, I hear New Age people talk about the Great White Brotherhood and the hierarchy of the angels and the stuff. That's mind talking. Consciousness doesn't do hierarchy. Exactly. It just is all possibility. All that is. And so the same mind construct, the mind, can entrap a New Ager as it entraps in another part of the mind a Wall Street banker.
It's just another religion. It's another religion.
That's the thing, you know. I was talking on an interview yesterday, and we got into some interesting areas. He asked me about religion. Well, religion and a political party and the New Age and all these things that we don't call religions, institutions, they're all the same construct.
Right.
And because consciousness just is. Consciousness doesn't think. Consciousness knows. That's why consciousness is silent when we access it, because it's got nothing to work out. The mind is where the chatter comes from, because it's constantly trying to work things out. What about tomorrow? What about yesterday? What did she say about me? Silence, consciousness. And So, to hold you in mind, and this conspiracy is about holding the population in mind, because then they got you.
Absolutely.
Because that's their stadium mind. They're stuck in mind. If they were conscious, they wouldn't do what they're doing. To hold us in mind, they have to sell us something to rigidly believe in. So, religion's brilliant example of rigid belief. And what is it? Once you rigidly believe something, you then call it a name. What are you? You don't say, I'm consciousness. How many people say, hello, who are you? I'm consciousness. Oh, so am I. Nice to meet you. No, no. What we are is what we do. I'm a journalist. I work in a factory. What are you? I'm a Hindu. I'm a Christian. Now, these are mind constructs. These are mind prisons that limit our sense of self. So once you have a religious belief, then you give it a name. And I have a simple philosophy about all this. If you can tell me what you believe and give it a name, you're in a prison. Because everything just is. We all just are. It's the force with no name, I call it, consciousness. And so you create religion, and then after the name, then comes the rules and regulations, this is how the construct goes, of what you have to conform to if you are going to be allowed to call yourself whatever name that's been come up with. You're not a Christian if you believe that, and all this stuff. And then you look at political parties. You have a group of people, they get together and they want to do something politically. So they give what they're doing a name. Democrats, Republicans, Labour Party, Conservative Party, whatever. So there's the name. Now come the rules and regulations that decide if you can call yourself one of the... You can't believe that and be a conservative. You can't believe that and be a liberal. It's the same construct wherever you look. Yeah. And then the belief system, as research has shown, rigid beliefs, the neurons fire off in a certain network and sequence in line with the belief, because what the brain's doing is then filtering, decoding reality and circumstance through the belief system, which manifests in the brain as the way the neurons fire off. And suddenly, instead of being free thinking, or even better, free knowing, conscious, you are operating in a tiny little box. And that box is basically the way well, not basically, it is the way your brain decodes reality. And so once you're into belief, rigid belief, then they got you. And that's why they want to sell you rigid beliefs.
Yeah. But there's an active paradox here, isn't there? Because that's not the whole story. Otherwise, you'd be sitting in the corner smiling and not talking to us here, and not working as hard as you do, and not talking to people to help the process of waking them up so that they can then join you in this understanding, which we share with you also. It's important, in a sense, to pretend that all this is real, because this is the platform from which we can waken ourselves up and rejoin consciousness again. And so it's a paradox. It goes on at both levels. What you say is true, and this all is an illusion, and it all doesn't matter, but it's all important enough for us to be talking about it.
It matters, Jim, in the sense that do we want to experience a reality that's very, very unpleasant, and controlling and limiting and frightening and stressful? Or do we want to experience a reality that is loving, kind, where no one goes hungry in a world of plenty, where there is no war, because no one would even consider the idea that it was a possibility or an option? That's the choice we're making. We're always consciousness, and when we leave the body, we'll become much more, at least much more aware of everything than we are now. So we're always conscious. We're all eternal consciousness. But the question is, what kind of experience do we want here?
Exactly.
You know, that's the choice.
What kind of, we call it, what kind of game do you want to play?
Yeah.
We have a chance now.